But for my question, I want you to know.
Way to keep it back on track, man. Well done.
I love Anthony Mackie, but he recently said something during a recent press tour for Brave New World, the new Captain America movie, and honestly, the last thing that this movie needed was controversy. I already made a whole video breaking down why I think making him Captain America, Sam Wilson, particularly at this moment in time, was probably a mistake based on the subpar writing that we got in the Falcon and Winter Soldier show and just everything leading up to this.
Don't understand. I'm a black man carrying the stars and stripes. What don't I understand? Every time I pick this thing up, I know there are millions of people out there who are going to hate me for it.
Whatever, that's a whole other thing. And I really like Anthony Mackie. I think he's a fantastic actor, and he just seems like a good dude overall. Like, he's good people. And now it seems as though everyone's turning against him over something he said, and I just want to go over it because personally, I don't think what he said was necessarily bad. It's just the amalgamation of the words. And when I listened to it, it did sound kind of off, but I don't think he meant it in the way that a lot of us are taking it. But then again, maybe he did. Like, if you take it at face value, maybe it's not that bad, but it was one of the dumbest things he could have said, particularly right now, especially considering the role he's playing and the kind of movie that he's making or he's in.
Yet I'm still here. No super serum, no blonde hair or blue eyes.
The only power I have is that I believe we can do better.
So Anthony Mackie, who is supposed to be playing Captain America in Brave New World, was asked what Captain America means to him, and he said this.
For me, Captain America represents a lot of different things, and I don't think the term, America should be one of those representations. Like, it's about a man who keeps his word, who has honor, dignity, and integrity. Someone who is trustworthy and dependable. It's kind of...
Now, I think I get what he was trying to say. He was probably trying to emphasize that Captain America isn't just about a country or patriotism, but about values, honor, integrity, trustworthiness, all of that stuff. And yeah, that's part of it. But you know what the problem is? And as I've said before, this was absolutely the wrong time to do this for several reasons, right? You're trying to promote a movie for a company that has lost face with the audience. America is trying to get back on its feet in the country, and everything's in tatters, right? So now this movie is coming out about Captain America, or now he's being Captain America, and then you say something like this, which honestly, at first, I really believe he meant it innocently for the most part, but it kind of comes off like you don't like America or something, or you're basically saying that it shouldn't represent America because America doesn't stand for those things. It can be easily interpreted that way in the way it was said. And it's understandable that that's the way that people interpret it. And if you're coming from the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, as well as seeing some of the other comments that Anthony Mackie has made in the past, it's easy for people to believe the worst of what he meant.
I've done 7 Marvel movies now. Every producer, every director, every stunt person, every costume designer, every PA has been white. But then when you do Black Panther, you have a black director, black producer, you have a black designer, you have a black stunt choreographer, you have a black... And I'm like, that's more racist than anything else. Because if you only can hire the black people for the black movie, are you saying they're not good enough when you have a mostly white cast?
Right.
So my big push with Marvel, with everybody, is hire the best person for the job. If you look at it now, there's no reason why you can't say, all right, well, even if it means we're going to get the best 2 women, we're going to get the best 2 men, we're going to get the best 2 that, the best 2 this. Fine. I'm cool with those for the next 10 years because it starts to build a new generation of people who can put something on their resume to get them other jobs. If we got to divvy it up. Right. At least for here.
If you take some of these clips at face value, it may seem as though Anthony is trying to suggest that black people should be pushed into predominantly white spaces or that white people should be pushed aside. And yes, while some of what he says can be interpreted that way, if you actually listen to what he says in context or as he continues talking and you wait for him to actually get to the point, for the most part, that's not what he's saying. At least I don't believe so. Sometimes he makes mistakes because he's human and he doesn't always have a script in front of him. Some people are naturally better speakers than others. especially on the spot. Like, he's very funny on the spot, but when it comes to deep things, he seems to kind of misspeak sometimes, as most normal people do. Me, for example, I'm a writer, but then when I speak to people IRL, I tend to talk too fast. And so it makes it really easy for me to misspeak or even like make up words, which makes me sound like a freaking idiot. But if I write down what I have to say or I speak more slowly, I'm less likely to phrase things in an ambiguous way that people will misinterpret. And I think that's what's happening with Anthony Mackie. Also, it's important to note that he's not being malicious. There are other actors that have come out and they're being malicious or attacking the audience or just being really full of themselves. And that's not the energy that he's giving at all. So there is a difference. That being said, his PR team should have prepped him better, asking him what he planned to say and preparing him for these potential questions that are questions that people would ask. And then you could see that he was like trying to backtrack because he probably realized how his words could be taken. And I don't think he meant it that way, at least based on what we've seen of him so far. However, from a marketing perspective, it looks really bad for the movie. And I still stand by the fact that he should not have said it at all.
You know, the last time I was in Germany and saw a man standing above everybody else, we ended up disagreeing.
The first thing that we gotta address, right? The name of the character, especially the character he's taking the mantle from, is literally Captain America. The other issue I said is like, Anthony Mackie is playing Captain America. It's not just some superhero with a vague identity. He is Captain America. His entire existence is tied to the idea of America. It's in the name. Steve Rogers was created in the comics during World War II as a literal symbol of American pride, resilience, and the fight against tyranny. His red, white, and blue suit wasn't a coincidence. His whole name was meant to stand for the country's ideals, even when America itself wasn't living up to them. Saying that America shouldn't be part of what he represents, I feel like that's just missing the entire point of why the character exists in the first place. And by the way, people seem to have this misconception. America isn't just the government. It's largely the people. And as I've said before, right now the country's a mess. People are struggling and they're divided and exhausted from everything that's happening in the world. And Captain America is one of those few superheroes who's meant to be a unifying figure. Someone who represents what America should be, even when it's not perfect. People don't want to hear their new Captain America downplaying the America part of his identity when so many feel like the country needs something to believe in. Whether you love or you hate the United States, Captain America has always been about standing for justice, resilience, and this idea that things can be better. As he said, you gotta do better. Well, things can get better, and that's exactly what people want to hear right now. Now, a whole other angle to the situation is that maybe Anthony Mackie was pandering to the international audience, particularly in Europe, and honestly, I feel like if that's the case, that just kind of makes it worse. Marvel movies rely really heavily on the overseas markets, and it wouldn't be surprising if Mackie was trying to avoid like any potential backlash for the non-American audiences. I don't know why, but there's this trend in Hollywood where actors downplay American patriotism because they don't want to alienate international viewers, especially in countries where anything remotely pro-America is seen as propaganda. And if that's what Mackie was going for, I feel like it's unnecessary because Captain America already has global acceptance. I mean, again, the character's name is Captain America. Even people around the world that don't like America still love Captain America. He's never just been about nationalism. He's fighting for what's right. The character has already transcended the borders. So there was never a need to go out of his way to distance Cap from America just to appeal to people overseas. And I'm sorry, but all it ends up doing is making it look like you're kind of taking a shit on the American people. But here's where it gets even worse. Like when you say something like,
You know, different things, and I don't think the term, you know, America should be one of those representations. Like, it's about a man who keeps his word, who has honor, dignity, and integrity.
When you say that right after saying America shouldn't be part of that representation, the implication, people can take it as you meaning that America doesn't have those traits. And even if you believe that, which sure, there are reasons why someone might, it's not something that you should be saying when you're literally promoting Captain America. Because here's the thing, like if you...
Hey, Jimmy.
What the hell was that?
Just fucking kiss me, man.
Whether you agree with the idea of America or not, this character is meant to inspire people. So even if he started off as a propaganda tool Look at what Steve Rogers became. That was the whole point. He was a man who fought for the people, even when he was standing against his own government. That's what Captain America is. He's not this blind nationalist. He's someone who represents what America should be. So Mackie didn't really need to say this. Nobody needed to be convinced that a Captain America is more than just America. We already knew, everyone already knew that. People from all over the world already connect with the character, so why even go there? It wasn't necessary. And all it ended up doing was creating more unnecessary division at a time when people need unity and hope more than ever, which is what he was preaching in his whole thing with the Falcon and the Winter Soldier show, which, oof, that was bad.
Are you still going forward with resetting the borders?
Our peacekeeping troops will begin relocating people soon. The terrorists only set us back a bit.
You have to stop calling them terrorists. What else would we call them? Your peacekeeping troops carrying weapons are forcing millions of people into settlements around the world, right? What do you think those people are going to call you? You have to stop calling them terrorists.
We're fighting for our lives.
Those the people there.
This is the only language these people understand.
You have to stop calling them terrorists. What else would we call them?
Structural almost here. Worst case scenario, we kill the hostages. Either way, our message gets out to the world. We're supposed to use them to negotiate.
And yeah, so your character coming off of that and then you doing a press tour saying this, understandably, people are going to think that this new movie in the character and possibly even the actor playing him is anti-American. At the end of the day, you're stepping into the role of Captain America. And if you're doing that, you have a responsibility to understand what the name means. Yes, duh, it's not just a country, but to everyone who looks up to the character. Mackie could have easily have said something like, Captain America represents the best of us. Honor, courage, resilience, standing up for what's right no matter where you're from. Boom. No controversy, no backlash, just a statement that uplifts everybody without making it sound like he's rejecting the very name of the character that he's playing, but instead, here we are.
You know what they did to me for being a hero? They put my ass in jail for 30 years. People running tests, taking my blood, coming into my cell. Even your people weren't done with me.
I see you.
Get out of my house!
How could nobody bring him up? I asked you a question, Bucky.
I know.
Steve didn't know about him?
He didn't. I didn't tell him.
So you're telling me that there was a black super soldier decades ago and nobody knew about it? Hey! What's up, man?
Is there a problem here?
No, we're just talking.
We're fine. Can I see your ID?
I don't have ID.
Man,
Why?
seriously? Just sir, just calm down.
I am calm. What do you want? We're just standing there
Just
talking.
give me your ID.
No, I'm
so
not
we
giving
get
him
the hell
shit. We're just talking.
Hey, look, is this guy bothering you? He's not bothering me. Do you know this?
Wow. That's weird.
You know, I feel like this whole thing could have been avoided if they gave him some PR training, which apparently is something they don't do anymore until like only after controversy breaks out. Brave New World is already facing enough skepticism, and there are people who aren't fully sold on Sam Wilson taking up the shield because of how weak the writing was in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. People like myself feel that way as well. I mean, for people who didn't watch the show, or at least the majority of it, you probably have no idea how much of a putrid, vile kind of propaganda tool it is. It's really terrible, like borderline racist, both towards black people and white people, and insulting to civilians and the American people. And instead of getting fans hyped and showing them why he's the right person to carry this legacy, Mackie's statement is being taken as him just feeding the negativity and divisiveness. And it gives critics another reason to doubt the film and question if he even understands the character. If we want hope that there was a really positive message behind what Mackie meant, you know, it should be that Captain America shouldn't just represent a country, right? He should stand for his ideals. But as I said before, that's what America strives for. Like, if we had a hero that was, I don't know, we had Captain Planet, Captain Universe, Captain Italy, Captain what, no one would have a problem with that. But for some reason, it feels as though, particularly with Hollywood, America, whenever America comes into play, that is an issue. And if you really believe that America is in shambles and it has a bad name, it has a bad representation, then make the character that is supposed to stand for that representation. Don't have someone come out and say, well, I don't think America should be one of those things he represents, because it can be taken as a huge misstep, right? And it's reinforcing this idea that people should even try to be better as Americans. And if you always see Americans or America as something terrible, that's your only viewpoint, how do you ever expect to improve? How are people supposed to be motivated and inspired to make things better if you act like America has no values we're standing for? And again, I'm not saying that's what he predominantly meant, but that's how it's being interpreted. It's kind of like what Dalton Ain't Worried said on TikTok.
Whew, look at that view. God damn, look at that view.
This guy and his wife literally go out and pick up trash in the forest along like the sides of the roads and stuff because his whole motto is he's proud of where he lives. He understands something simple but important. If people already see trash there, like if someone is littering and other people see trash, they're just going to keep throwing more trash because they'll think, well, it's already a mess. Nobody takes pride in this place, so I'm just going to add to it. And that same mindset applies to any country or the place that we live in. If you don't take pride in it, why is anybody else going to take pride? And if you only ever talk about how bad something is, if you never acknowledge the good or potential for better, people are going to stop caring. They're going to stop trying because what's the point of fixing something that's already beyond saving? And I'm not even specifically just addressing Anthony Mackie because like I said, I need to keep reiterating this in case people skip through the video and they don't hear or whatever, but it's not even that I'm saying that he predominantly thinks this. I don't think he hates America at all. Now I'm just addressing people in general because there are people that if you do misinterpret that, they may agree with the sentiment of being anti-America. And all I'm saying is even if there are issues with America, and there are, just like every country, it doesn't mean that you try to dismantle the character that represents the best version of it. Captain America isn't about blind patriotism. He's not a propaganda figure anymore. He stands for the aspiration of what America should be. He's the same kind of symbol as Superman or Spider-Man. They're not perfect, they don't represent perfect places, but they represent ideals, something people can look up to. Superman is literally an alien, but he still represents hope. Spider-Man is some dude from Queens, but he represents responsibility. Captain America, he represents integrity, honor, and standing up for what's right even when it's hard. That's why he can still represent America. Not because it's perfect, but he is a symbol for the American people. He is an American character. That's what he's always been about. And there's nothing wrong with being proud of that or having a character that stands for that.
We will educate him.
At the end of the day, what Mackie said wasn't the worst thing in the world, but I think it was absolutely the wrong thing to say right now. And I honestly think he misspoke because he was trying to backpedal so bad. He let the intrusive thoughts win. I feel so bad. I feel so bad because I don't think he's a bad person at all. And I hope people don't use this as a means to turn against him. I really do think he just misspoke, which explains why he was careening over the edge of the cliff here when he went over trying to use something else and misdirect, because it was very awkward.
Who is trustworthy and dependable. This is kind of like an aspect of a dream coming true. When I was a kid, all of us as actors, I believe, want to get back to that day before someone told you no. When you look out your door and you see a 5-year-old kid with a stick and he's slaying dragons to save the princess in the tower, that kid really believes there are dragons out there. That stick is really a...
Why'd you get the kumquats out of your mouth and get to the fucking point? Because I don't know what you're talking about.
Let's also not pretend that anything he says at this point was going to make or break the movie, because the movie's already in a very bad spot and most likely will fail. And that's not me trying to be negative. It's just pattern recognition from what Disney and Marvel have been putting out. Yes, I know everyone's trying to course correct, but that takes time, and these movies were already in production before they started course correcting. And yes, what also didn't help is using the coattails of the show, taking a preachy, lecturing, victim status type hero that took a hand-me-down power and is now trying to do a PSA speech, but not actually doing anything or saying anything.
You can move borders.
You can knock down a forest with the email. You can feed 1 million people with a phone call. But the question is, who's in the room with you when you're making those decisions? Is it the people you're going to impact?
Or is it just more people like you? I mean, this girl died trying to stop you. And no one has stopped for 1 second to ask why. You've got to do better, Senator. You've got to step up. Because if you don't, the next Carly will. And you don't want to see 2.0.
And it's not saying you can't have empathy. It's also about common sense. You can have empathy, but it really wasn't a good look for Falcon and the Winter Soldier when they heavily implied that these aggressive terrorists who showed no concern for innocent lives, they weren't just going up against the people that they were against. Innocent people were killed to the point where even the people who were alongside this girl were like, what are you doing? And she had no problem killing them, somehow that they deserve empathy, despite showing none themselves. It's hard to see someone like that as deserving a role like Captain America, given the writing in Falcon and the Winter Soldier and how they essentially forced that narrative.
Just calm down.
I am calm. What do you want? We're just standing here talking.
Just give him your ID.
No, I'm not giving him shit. We're just talking.
Hey, look, is this guy bothering you? No, he's not bothering me. Do you know who this is? Oh, God. I'm so sorry, Mr. Wilson. I didn't recognize you without the goggles.
Look, I'm not saying that things like that don't happen, but I think it really sent a wrong message. So yeah, that whole thing of framing these flag smasher people as poor innocent terrorists, despite them bombing buildings, kidnapping civilians, murdering innocent people, like I said, that was a complete misstep. I don't know what's wrong with Disney nowadays. It feels as though they're trying to garner more sympathy for the actual villains than the actual people. And I mean, I guess it's par for the course because they're doing the same thing IRL in society, where it feels as though criminals and people who don't follow the law get more sympathy and benefits than the actual civilians. And the really messed up part about all of this, which is why it's like, oh my God, I just had to turn this off, because his whole speech failed to properly acknowledge the real suffering caused by these terrorists or the actual victims of their crimes. Like, he focused more on the terrorists rather than all the damage that they caused and the innocent people and their families that were affected by it. So if people have watched this with all this strange propaganda in this, which I don't even know where they were going, I don't even know what the point of this writing was, it was horrible. And then they combine this with the things that he said during the press tour, this creates this disastrous mix that understandably led to people interpreting both his speech and the Brave New World Captain America film as being very anti-American. And as I said, it's a very concerning thing because people are going through that right now, you know, with the current global situation, and even right in the countries where these extremist groups are committing these heinous acts, or it's just a group of people, i.e. specifically criminals, and governments are making excuses for them rather than prioritizing the safety of their own citizens.
To prevent the possibility of being attacked in your home, leave your fobs at your front door. Because they're breaking into your home to steal your car. They don't want anything else. A lot of them that they're arresting have guns on them, and they're not toy guns, they're real guns. They're loaded.
Response to what's been a year saturated in violence. On Monday alone, there were 9 shooting incidents on city streets.
We're arresting somebody for pushing a woman down the stairs, and then we release them back into the streets. I mean, this is craziness.
Another example, a brutal and unprovoked attack on an Asian woman in Chinatown earlier this week. The incident caught on camera, but as a warning, it's difficult to watch.
Her back of her head hit the outdoor dining frame and she blanked out. Her eyes just went shut, went unconscious.
Police arrested Alexander Wright for the attack. Turns out the 48-year-old has a long rap sheet. Records show he's been arrested at least 17 times. A police source says the arrests were for multiple assaults, including an attack on a 72-year-old man, spitting on a woman's face, and punching a police officer. In fact, Wright had just been released on Thursday after police say he went on a crime spree, which included throwing hot coffee on 2 NYPD traffic agents, scratching a man in the eye, and breaking the glass on a Madison Avenue storefront.
So call me crazy, but, and I know people are gonna hate me for this, but as much as we all like Falcon, this was a major character flaw that should have been addressed or written better. I feel like it should have been written better before putting him in the role of Captain America, especially considering he was taking over from a character who had been far more honorable throughout his life and screen time, or at least he's been shown to be. And I think they messed up Falcon's character with that stupid Falcon and Winter Soldier show. Now, Anthony Mackie did come out later and cleared the air about things, and he said, "Let me be clear about this. I'm a proud American, and taking on the shield of a hero like Cap is the honor of a lifetime. I have the utmost respect for those who serve and have served our country. Cap has universal characteristics that people all over the world can relate to." And this was better because he wrote it down, right? But a lot of people have been asking, well, Chris Evans, when asked something similar or asked the same thing, said the same thing Anthony Mackie said, so why wasn't there controversy back then? Now, I couldn't find the actual video, like it won't load, but they do have the written interview down here. So alleging that this is true, Chris Evans said this. Well, to me, I'm not trying to get too lost in the American side of it. This isn't a flag-waving movie. It is red, white, and blue. But it just so happens that the character was created in America during wartime when there was a common enemy, even though it is Captain America. I've said before in interviews, it feels more like he should just be called Captain Good. Ha ha ha, he laughs. I don't know how he laughs. You know, he was created at a time when there was this undeniable evil, and this guy was kind of created to fight that evil. I think that everyone could agree that Nazis were bad, and he, Cap, just happens to wear the red, white, and blue. And I know this might be annoying, but this is exactly why people have PR representatives. Like, you'll also notice that this is why celebrities, politicians, other public figures, they have lawyers. Like, if they're in issues, the lawyers will say, don't say this, don't say that. They don't want to speak before consulting their attorney, agent, or a media trainer who prepares them to communicate effectively in front of the public. As a celebrity, a single string of words can easily be taken out of context. A single gesture that you do can easily be taken out of context. We've seen this happen time and time again with political figures, celebrities, and even regular people. And this is also why, like, if you ever get arrested, you're encouraged to exercise your right to remain silent, because literally anything you can say or do will be framed against you or used against you in a court of law as evidence or what have you. Even if you didn't mean for it to be that way, framing is everything. Now, the difference between Chris Evans and Anthony Mackie's statements comes down to this as well, to tone and perception too. I figured for the people who are interested, who like, they're wondering, well, why are people, even after this entire video, while they're wondering why are people still having a stink about it, I decided to do a full breakdown. I had to really think about this, looking into wording, vocabulary, phrasing, to create a kind of breakdown as to why Mackie's statement received more backlash and why people might have misinterpreted it as anti-American. So let's break it down, right? We have Evans' comment up here and Mackie's comment right here. So when asked the question back at a time that I imagine social media probably wasn't as prolific and everything wasn't as racially and politically charged, Chris Evans reframes Captain America as a universal symbol of goodness rather than just an American icon. His wording emphasizes that while the character is tied to like American history, I mean, he starts off by saying it's red, white, and blue. He's saying more of those patriotic words, fight evil. It's not a flag waving movie, but it is red, white, and blue. Character was created in America during wartime, even though it's Captain America, Captain Good. So he's focusing on the evil and also introducing the positive side of things. So he's contrasting those, right? So it's tied to American history, moral compass, transcends nationalism, all that. And that's why he's saying he should be called Captain Good. Anthony Mackie, on the other hand, straight up stated Captain America should not be a representation, or shouldn't represent America at all. And this wording, when he said, I don't think the term America should be one of those representations, even though he's not wrong, this wording comes across as denying the character's connection to the country rather than broadening it. By him coming out and explicitly saying America shouldn't be one of those representations, it sounds like he's outright rejecting America as a concept, which can trigger strong reactions from very patriotic people or audiences. So even though they're both arguing that Captain America is more than just a national symbol, Evans' version feels like more of an expansion. It felt like his PR team did its job, so people would accept this, while Mackie's wording feels like a rejection. That's why people reacted differently. And as I've said, just to keep this in context, for many people, especially in a time like now when people think the country is going in a bad way and they want their country to be saved and to be a place that they can trust, that their later generations can grow up in safely, not this place where everyone hates each other, you don't own anything because everything's subscription based and the American dream is going down the shitter. Yes, I'm gonna keep going on about that. Captain America is not just a fictional superhero, he's a deeply patriotic figure that represents American ideals. Whether or not America lives up to those ideals is another debate, but many see Cap as an aspiration of what the country should stand for, as I said earlier. And I brought that back up because Chris Evans subtly acknowledges this without outright dismissing the connection to America. He distances the film from flag waving and reassures that Captain America fights against a common enemy, an undeniable evil, i.e. the Nazis. His statement aligns with the idea that Captain America is a force for good and something that Americans can be proud of, right? Who just so happens to wear the red, white, and blue. In contrast, Mackie separates Captain America from America entirely when he outright says, I don't think the term America should be one of those representations. And that can be seen as undermining the patriotic symbolism that many people attach to the character, even if that wasn't his intention. And the way it works is that psychologically, when people feel like something they hold dear is being dismissed, they react really emotionally, which is why a lot of people would take what Anthony Mackie said as being very anti-American. The other thing is that Chris Evans' statement came at a time when he was still playing Captain America, and it was framed as an introspective take on the character's evolution. It didn't feel like a rejection of the character's core identity, but rather an attempt to highlight the broader appeal of the character. Poor Anthony Mackie, his statement came at a time of heightened political division, where the media has created this monster where now everything is about race, representation, and national identity, and so everyone is hypersensitive about these things, especially when they're injected in everything. So understandably, wasn't really his fault that his words were going to get interpreted in a more politicized manner, especially since he's also taking over the mantle of Captain America post-Steve. Even if Mackie just meant, oh, Captain America's core values are honor, dignity, integrity, and that's more important than his nationalism, and that's what he meant. I 100% believe that's what he meant. The phrasing made it easier to misinterpret his statement as a rejection of American identity rather than a clarification of what the character represents. Humans are very vocal, and wording is everything when discussing a culturally significant character, especially one like Captain America that is tied to national identity. People usually don't analyze statements made by people logically all the time, but they tend to really react emotionally based on their personal values and biases. That's why if you say something remotely triggering that happens to sound like something, for example, if someone says, biologically on Earth there are two sexes, and people are super sensitive about that topic, they're gonna take it as an attack. And yes, language is a big deal. So Evan's statement equals not just American, while Anthony Mackie's statement basically is saying, in the way he uttered it, shouldn't represent America. That's what people hear. It sounds like a rejection. Evan's statement sounds like it's inclusive and additive. So yes, their responses were very similar. People weren't lying about that. But the way that Evans answered, obviously he's more trained to speak publicly. His language softened the potential controversy, while Mackie's phrasing triggered this knee-jerk reaction from these audiences who felt like he was attacking the character's American roots, especially given that he did this interview in Italy. I think it's kind of interesting. It's also a perfect example of how language, timing, and cultural context shape how people interpret a message, regardless of who's actually speaking and regardless of what their intention is. But anyway, I've said everything I have to say. I've already explained why at length in a video, why I'm not even interested in seeing Captain America Brave New World. Is there a chance it might be a great movie? Maybe so, but I don't really have hope for that. And I explain why in that video. That being said, I really hope this doesn't hurt Anthony Mackie because he's a great actor and I've seen him in other movies. I recently watched him in an Alien movie. He has a show also where he drives around in his car and does deliveries, and I have to go back and find what show that was because I forgot the name of it. We started watching it and we paused it to watch something else, but he was a lead in that as well. And he's just a very likable person. I'm telling you, Disney put a curse on everybody, I swear to God. But anyway, what do you guys think? Do you think that people are blowing it way out of proportion with what he said? I also don't think that we should accuse people or insult them for interpreting what he said as being anti-American, because if this is the first time you're seeing him, and with everything that Disney has been saying and how they've been writing their characters and stories, you can't really blame people for believing that's what he meant.
Does Captain America represent the term America? No, he's a symbol for America. He's an inspiration for America. Stanley Tucci character who wanted the guy who would represent the things America should aspire to be and inspire the country and inspire people. So anyway, again, I think this one little comment, again, has just been turned into an absolute virtue signaling wuss kind of thing to have something to cry about. I think what Anthony Mackie said is exactly accurate. I think it's exactly in the spirit of the way Captain America has been portrayed in all the movies so far. And if you got a problem with it, it's because you want to have a problem with it. It's just that simple.
I don't know. Maybe we're all doing too much.
I think there will likely be a lot of bad takes about this topic. Captain America that was created in 1940 was a direct response to Germany, a direct response to World War II, and he was created at a time where the United States was staying out of the war. It didn't need to be said, but this Captain America is not the Captain America we have today. The only time he really served this purpose was during World War II. Purposely kept him away from storylines related to Vietnam because they did not want him to show blind support for the country in that conflict. Circle back to Vietnam with Captain America in a Spider-Man comic, I believe, and show him attacking U.S. soldiers that were threatening Vietnamese civilians.